Hi, this is the fifth episode of iBookBinding's podcast, and today our guest is Ekaterina Savelyeva with her alter ego Katy Ebru. Hi, Katy.
Hello.
I think we can move to questions. Pavel, do you have any questions besides pigments?
Oh yes, especially about the projects you did with libraries. What did you work on? Were you recreating some historical patterns for old books, or what was the nature of your collaborative projects?
Talking about the libraries, of course, I would like to develop myself in marbling, to work more with bookbinders, because I feel the interest from their side in Russia. And one day I proposed to even these big libraries, State Library, National Library, I informed them about myself, and they were interested. And when it was 2 years ago, I was invited to take part in the conference in the Russian State Library in Moscow. Actually, this year in April, I could take part there also, but all this situation all around the world, everything was cancelled, unfortunately. And I should show my paper there, and also should make the workshop for the librarians and restoration masters.
Could you talk a bit more about the
about the books? Yes.
Yeah.
When I present my paper for the libraries, of course they choose from my stuff, from my assortment. And quite often, not only librarians, even usual bookbinders, when they restore the books, they ask me to create or to make the similar pattern. First of all, I should see the pattern on marble paper on the book. And depending on its difficulty, I can say them, can I create the similar one or not? And time to time, unfortunately, I should refuse, but quite often I did successfully, and people like
similar patterns.
In my group, you can find those orders when I try to repeat the old marble paper.
And what do you prefer? You possibly prefer creating new patterns, improvising when you are not so constrained, or is it humbling when you're repeating patterns that used hundreds of years ago but by great masters?
Of course, it's easier to improvise and to do what you want, to change the colors, pigments, to use other special ingredients to create something interesting. But at the same time, it's hard to repeat the old books. It's a big task to find the match color, to create the similar pattern. It's a hard task to make the same one, but when I reach that result, I'm very satisfied that, oh yes, I've done it.
And when you recreate historical patterns, do you also use handmade paper? Because I assume 200 years ago, most of it was handmade?
No, I usually use the same modern Italian paper.
There were a lot of questions about paper you use. Could you perhaps recommend some brands, comment on?
I guess we will move to questions and we will just work through them.
Talking about the paper, I remember that question. I like to work with the Italian paper because the bookbinders, generally bookbinding goes from past old art and old books. They have their inspiration, oldest inspiration, and it has the cover of time. I like to work with ivory Italian paper, especially if you will cover it after marbling. It creates very nice old effect.
I guess I will just read the question about types of paper now, and maybe you will add something. Okay. So it was a question from Karen. We received it on our Instagram account, Karen at Indigo Craft Room. Hi, Katy. I was wondering if you could share your favorite papers used for marbling, brands or so. I work mostly with Hannemühle. Any other tip? Thank you. Do you know Hannemühle paper?
I checked that name. Really, it's understood some German brand. And talking about my paper, I work with Fabriano Italian paper.
Yeah, that's pretty famous paper. And any preference on the thickness of the paper?
Thickness, it also can be different. I work from 90 maximum till 120, but even 120 for me is quite thick. As I know, many other marblers, they usually do to 120, but for me it's a bit inconvenient. And even bookbinders say that some of them, they say that it's already a thick one when they cover the books.
And what is the difference? Why do you prefer one thickness over another? What is the difference for you?
For me, difference is just how you put the paper on the surface, and as you paid attention now at the process, how it's curled, yeah? It's the very thick paper, it's curled more, but at the same, if it will be very thick, I don't know, cartoon,
yeah.
vice versa, it would be easier. You should ask also bookbinders, maybe Stepan can say us how you will fold the paper. It also influences, I think.
I think that too thick paper is definitely not really usable for covering books, but at the same moment, too thin paper is also not really good, because it may wrinkle when you put it on put glue on it or something, and it can give a lot of trouble. Just a couple episodes ago, we had a discussion about working with some sorts of decorative papers that are wrinkling when you are applying starch paste or even PVA glue. So that can be a problem. But on the other hand, when you are using marble paper for end leaves, it shouldn't be as thin as 90 grams. Well, it can be thin as 90 grams, but then that should be some sort of really sturdy paper that wouldn't tear as easily as some other types of paper. So yeah, I think thicker paper is a general choice for this occasion.
And you generally make your paper for bookbinders. Most of your paper goes to bookbinders.
Bookbinders, yes. Some girls who make scrapbooking, they also like it. From Russia, from United Kingdom, scrapbookers also buy it.
I know the Japanese also use their marbled paper for gift wrapping, but it seems to me to be a crime.
Too expensive.
Quite frankly.
I used it for the gifts for my relatives. Yes, it can be nice decoration for that.
I just got one more question over email, so we'll see if we will have time to answer to it. So there were two questions that were pretty similar. Both came through email, I guess, from people who got iBookBinding's newsletter. And one came from Eva, and another came from John Baines. Do you ever do tiger eye or sunspot patterns? What recipe do you use to get it? That's from Eva, and John Baines gave quite a long description of his story. So I will read it anyway. Long and rambling background, writes John Baines. About 15 years ago, I spent a lot of time experimenting with marbling. The one pattern that interested me the most and still does is the sunspot or tiger eye pattern. I love the exquisite detail that results from the chemical and physical properties of the ingredients rather than particular manipulation by the marble. Watching it form is magical. Looking at the recipes in old sources like The Whole Art of Marbling by Charles Woolnough and The Progress of the Marbling Art by Joseph Halfer, they often refer to using chemicals that simply aren't available today, and that's exactly I wanted to read this long description, because that's an important part of question, because chemicals change and approaches change, and some chemicals are recognized as toxic or they are become obsolete and non-available. However, by experimenting with various chemicals that I thought might substitute, I managed to produce some lovely sunspot patterns using gouache pigments or on Carrageen size and various chemicals from around the house. Unfortunately, when I rinsed the prints, the sunspots often just slid off the paper. It was very frustrating, so I gave up. So the question is, does Katy have a recipe using commonly available chemicals to produce the sun phase tension effects that give sunspot patterns that are robust? What size is the best, and can I use acrylic paints?
This question includes several of them.
Yeah, several questions.
First of all, I wouldn't say that the chemicals which I need for the tiger eye, they are not available. Even in Russia, I can't even in Russia. First, of course, I bought it from Turkey. Then even I can find in Russia the special shops. As you read, that John paid attention, that there are many different recipes exist. Different information I can find. Generally, it's a very difficult task to make the tiger eye. It's, frankly speaking, for me, it's a big challenge to create this pattern. Every new attempt is is a challenge for me. Can I do it or not? I don't have any exact recipe. Just I'm trying and get the materials and look by my eye. I use, first of all, I take the water. Some people they say that you should take even distilled water. Then I take the potash and alum.
Yeah.
The difficulty of this pattern is how much you should use. It's very little quantity, and you should use them very precisely to get the tiger eye effect. But really, when you create it, it's amazing to observe how this tiger eye is creating, how it's opening this pattern. It's really something very beautiful. Time to time I can make it successfully, but one other day I had the material, I prepared it, and it doesn't work. Time to time I also gave up.
Yeah, I guess this answers the question from John, and Eva had the second question. Do you use oil or turpentine for certain patterns? How does it work?
Yes, I do. It's traditional ingredients to create the pattern from 18th, 19th century. Turpentine I use for the stormont pattern, oil for shell pattern. They're very beautiful, nice. More often I work with turpentine.
Next one comes from Shannon O'Blenes. I would like to know what type of brand of paint the professionals use to get such bright colors. I tried marbling with the golden fluid acrylics, and while the colors looked great on the gelatin, but they ended up pale and washed out on the paper. I did size the paper with alum beforehand. I guess you already answered this question in part, but still.
Yes, I showed you brands of my pigments.
Yeah.
By the way, John before paid attention, is it possible to create tiger eye with acrylics? Talking about me, I never did tiger eye with acrylics, but some other marblers from in America and Brazil, they make a very perfect tiger eye even with acrylic colors. It depends of master his skills, how he got used to work with marbling.
I guess it depends on the mix as well. I mean the water and size mix, or
I think so.
More experiments, and you will get the perfect balance of the colors.
Yeah, marbling generally is a big experiment. You can study, maybe it's everywhere. You can study all of your life.
Talking about sizing paper with alum, I tried some just printer paper, to use some printer paper I had on hand, and I had really washed out results. And when I showed these photos to some marblers, they told me that, okay, you just, I sized this paper with alum. And they told me, okay, you didn't need to size this paper with alum at all. You just had to try without any size, and the colors would be better. So is it the reason? How does it work? Because I don't understand this process absolutely.
But by the way, was this sheet of paper covered with alum or not?
It was covered, yeah. This one was covered with alum, yeah. And they told me you didn't need to do that.
Yeah, it's again a question of experiments.
Yeah.
Talking about, there are again two sides how the marbles work. Talking about the Turkish marbling, they don't cover and they don't use alum for covering the paper at all.
Yeah.
Because usually they use it for decoration, for the pictures on the walls, and there is no need to cover it. And Western world, America, Europe, they prefer the covering with alum.
Yeah.
Maybe because I was grown from the Turkish school. More often I also don't cover it because already in cooperation with different bookbinders, I understood that it's better not to cover the paper because some of them would like to do it as they want. I mean, if somebody asked me to cover it, I do by myself. For example, wax or some lock, I can do it.
You told that you experimented with some objects, not only with paper. Did you try marbling something else besides paper? Maybe some cloth or silk or some other things?
Yes,
I don't know what.
I did, especially at the start of my marbling every way. I covered the ceramics, I covered different handmade tools. It's nice to work with fabric. I have plans also to start to come back to the fabric because I have an idea to create some collection maybe of clothes with marbling.
That would be great. I saw some marblers on Facebook showing how they work with fabrics, and they have this huge, several meter long basins. Yeah, and that's just, and you need to have several people grabbing on the fabric, and then, yeah, that's just impressive.
I should have some assistance.
Yeah,
it's my problem.
I've also seen books bound in marble cloth, and they were spectacular. They look like nothing else. They have an additional texture of the textile itself, so it's very unusual. It both looks like marble paper and doesn't.
No, books I didn't see with marble textile, but it's a really nice idea.
Okay,
you two could cooperate.
Were they old books or new books?
No, contemporary.
Okay, that's interesting. Moving to the next question, it came from Itzmalli Coca. It was originally in Spanish, and I used Facebook's auto-translate. So yeah, the translation made me be a bit funky. How to fix color once painted? Because when so I will try to interpret the question. The first part is how to fix color once printed, and then there is explanation that I understood, like when you use marbled paper in some book or something, the person who asked it often gets the result that the paints from marbled paper, from marbled sites, start to mark the white pages of notebooks or books. So yeah, the general question is how to fix the colors on the sheet of marbled paper.
As I paid attention before, even if you didn't fix it in advance by loom, you can cover it with wax or lac. It's the easiest way.
And so yeah, so in the first place, alum.
Do you agree as bookbinder?
Yeah, with wax it definitely works, but there may be some issues with that. Because wax itself may mark some other objects. With lac, I'm not sure because I'm not sure if it is flexible enough after it's sprayed. I never really tried this method, but maybe I'm not right to say that. But what's your experience when you spray the marbled sheet of paper? Is it flexible enough?
Right. To spray. I agree with you that was not perfect. I didn't like it. As I think the perfect way to, as I time to time cover my paper, is I prepare by myself shellac and cover it by that liquid.
That's also an interesting option. But one of the first solutions is to size the paper with alum before you are. If you have bleeding colors, you can use alum before that on your paper.
Many marblers work like that.
Next one also came through Instagram. A question from Susan Burrows. Instagram handles Susie Kitchens. Have pretty much tried every size and type of paint and just can't get a satisfactory result. Really wish I could get it right. And we really talked about this throughout all our podcasts, that you should try more. But if a person thinks that they tried everything, I'm not sure that what advice can you give to Susan?
If they have if our listeners, audience have some problems, they easily can write me and we discuss precisely their questions. Maybe I can give some advices.
Okay, that's a good answer as well. Thank you.
It was fascinating watching your work. Do you actually make any video tutorials? Are there any of your tutorials online?
So far not. I'm thinking about that.
You totally should. It was fascinating.
Do you think it would be interesting for people?
I know quite a few people who could pay for it. So I think it would be interesting for you.
I'm thinking maybe they will grow.
I'm sure that this type of videos would be interesting for different people, both in a format of paid workshops or in a format of free short videos on YouTube. Maybe with less details and less information.
That would also be very relaxing. I can imagine watching that after a long work day.
Okay, when I will make several of them, I will send you the link for them, Pavel.
Thank you.
Here is the last question that came just a few minutes ago. It's from Janet Mente. Some days when I'm marbling, things just do not work. I know there is a German book by a 19th century marble entitled in translation, My Struggle with Oxgall. So I know these things happen. So my question is, what do you do on those days? Do you give up, start from scratch, or try to fix the mix? And if so, how? I think that's a nice question.
So is I understood correctly, if I have some problem with my pigments, what do I do?
Yeah. And if you just, in general, if you are working on some day and nothing works out, you have all the troubles, do you just give up, or you press yourself and make a different mix and try it all over again?
Yes, it's really actual question. I also faced sometimes the same problem. It's very hard to realize really when I work with some order for bookbinder, because you have limited time, you have to do it quite rapidly, and you face this problem. Oh my God, what can I do? Actually, when I did this last American order, I had the problem. I tried once again. I do some mixed, stir the pigments, water, and I couldn't get results with what I would satisfy. And I said, at that day, that it was evening, I gave up and I said, okay, it's better, I think, to stop. Next morning, I started once again, and it really was better. Time to time, it works.
Okay. So sometimes it's reasonable to stop everything and just start from scratch next day.
Maybe it depends on your mood. Okay. It's actually, I really understand him as a marbler. Quite often.
Yeah, this happens not only with marbling, but I guess with marbling it can really bug you. So we surprisingly worked through all our questions. I think it's all the stuff we wanted to discuss. Do you want to add something, Katy? Do you want to add something, Pavel?
It was very nice discussion.
I'm speechless.
It was a very nice discussion. Thank you for that. Thank you for your invitation. I hope you enjoyed it. It would be interesting for the audience. Would be nice to listen the feedback from them.
To see all our videos, you can subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can subscribe to our newsletter on iBookBinding.com to get all the updates about future guests and current podcasts. And Katy, who you would like to see as one of the future guests of iBookBinding podcast? Do you have somebody on your mind?
You mean bookbinders?
Bookbinders, book professional, paper makers, marblers, just anyone who is related to bookish things in general.
I know very nice, actually, I think professional bookbinder. Definitely you should know her, Lewis from Belgium, maybe. Why I say about her, it's interesting somehow to feel her in face-to-face through the laptop.
Yeah. Okay, and if some of our viewers have any ideas on who would be a good guest for our podcast, we'll try to reach out to this person and to arrange a recording in future. And last but not least, many thanks to iBookBinding's patrons on Patreon. We're not charging any fees, any pledges these months during the lockdowns, and at least until September. And we made our collection of bookish books free and available for everybody for this time. But you still can join the crowd of patrons and become our supporter. The system will charge you one first time, but the future payments will be delayed at least until September. So thanks a lot. Thank you, Katy, for showing us a lot of stuff, for answering the questions. Thank you, Pavel, for being with us and asking some questions. It was fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome. Thanks a lot. Bye.
You see you in autumn.
Yeah, I guess so. Hopefully.
If you don't leave Europe.
Yeah.